And
Yep,
we
it's
are live. Now we're live. So we will get started right at 3 o'clock to give people a chance to join us. We can just go around and say our names just to make sure that we are still able to hear, and then we'll give more detail introductions once the time hits. So we can just do as sort of a mic check. We'll just go around and say our names and our company names. So I'll start. I'm O. Leonard with Rainwater Growth.
CC Robinson with Robinson Productions.
Hey, Anuprakash with AP Bookkeeping, the Money Doctor.
And Shane Ford with Ford Business Solutions.
Awesome, awesome. And we still have about one more minute. So let's think. Tell your favorite funny joke. So we're gonna do a miniature comedy minute, not an hour. We're gonna do a comedy hour. So what's your favorite joke?
I got one that's kind of corny, but it's
Long as it's clean, okay?
yeah. It's
Okay.
clean. It's
All
clean.
right.
It's clean. I promise.
All right. I know how to
It's
mute people. So go ahead.
yeah, it's more relative to me and East Coast folks, but it's it's pretty funny how similar New York and Minnesota are, because New York is where the Big Apple is, and Minnesota is where the Mini Apple is.
I actually
That's a
do.
good one.
Pretty
That's a good
good.
one. Yeah,
It is.
not corny at all. Like,
Yeah,
it's good for our age. We
good.
need that.
Yeah.
All right. So did that give us enough time? We're almost at 3. We're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to kick it off with that first opening question. Please provide a quick overview of the service you provide and what inspired you to start it. And I'm going to go ahead and put us on the full view so everyone can see everyone else.
Yeah, I'll start. Again, Shane Ford with Ford Business Solutions. I do sales and operations consulting for small businesses, particularly in the home service trades businesses. So, like your roofers, HVAC, electricians, plumbers, things like that. And I was inspired to start this business because I had been in sales for 10 years. I did door to door sales for 4 years, and then I sold software to small, medium, and enterprise level companies for about 6. And what inspired me to do it was just the changes in the job market and how many different people were kind of flooding into trades. And I wanted to use my expertise to help some of these businesses perform better sales motions on the front line, and then operationally on the back end become more efficient.
Okay. I'll pass it over to Cece.
Yes, so again, my name is CC Robinson. I started Robinson Productions about 3 years ago. We're a full service creative and marketing company. I started my business because I really wanted to help local service based businesses create and execute their marketing strategy. I feel like there's a lot of coaches out there that tell you what to do. There's a lot of agencies out there that are for the big brand businesses, but there wasn't like that agency for small business space. So I really wanted to create that and do it from a sense of the background and expertise that I have. So bringing them actual tangible marketing tactics that they're able to implement to grow their business.
And Anu, we will pass it over to you.
Hey guys, I'm Anuprakash. AP Bookkeeping Consultant is my business name, but keeping it short is AP Bookkeeping. And I have a background in medicine, so the money doctor. So bringing the same expertise, the medical level expertise to financials. And the reason why I moved here was like I was able to, find money in a tax forms while I was digging through it, not having the basics in finances, but then I was like, this might be a problem that I could solve with businesses. Didn't know bookkeeping was a thing when I started it, but then learned it, and I'm helping businesses with measurable results now. I mainly work with small businesses in the service industry and creative space, and businesses who care about bookkeeping, not as just compliance, but something that could be a tool that could help them grow confidently and make actionable strategies and steps using those numbers, seeing what happened in the past, what they could do better in the future or in the present. So it's
Okay.
been
So
fun.
the Oh, I interrupted you because I got really excited. But
Yeah.
the reason I brought everyone together is because, first of all, I had an awesome conversation with Anu. So he is the one who inspired this whole panel series because I talked to him and he has such positive energy. I was like, yes, we need to show you to other, I need my people to see you, right? And then I had met Shane separately and introduced him to Anu. And I was telling Anu before I went on live and on air, both of them came back to me and was like, yes. The other person is the best person I've ever talked to him. They were just like, I won't say fangirls because they're both guys, but you know what I'm saying? They were like, these other people are awesome. And then a little later on, I met Cece. So she sponsored one of my networking events. And so I met her. So we were already in conversation. And so I just like on a whim, was like, I'm going to ask her and find out if she wants to sit in on our conversation and just talk and chat between the three of us. And then you convinced me to actually come on camera because I prefer to be like this, but we can do this. We can do
Thank
this.
you.
This is a muscle that we must that we must exercise here. So what is one common challenge that all three of you see when business owners are struggling with your area of expertise? And if anyone is joining us, I see we have at least one person joining us. So if anyone is joining us and wants to type questions in the chat, you can do it. It's going to be a bit of a 10-second delay before I see it since we are going live on YouTube. That's a 10-second delay, but we will see it and we can always come back to it. And we also have the questions that were submitted as people registered. So we'll try to hit each of those as well. So this time I forgot who I picked on first. So we're going to pick on Shane, even if he was the first person last time, because I forgot.
Sure, sure. One challenge that I see with service-based businesses when it comes to sales is they get a lot of leads, but because the owner is so busy and they have their hands in so many different pots of the company, it makes it really difficult for them to keep track of where those leads are going. And a lot of times what I see is they have kind of like an impromptu process when it comes to following up with these leads. It's one of those things where they're like, I'll do it when I get time, or I'll do it tomorrow. And so what I try to coach on when I'm helping these service-based businesses is let's take the stress out of when to do it, and let's just build a system on how consistently you should be following up with these leads that are actually coming in, so that over time you can build consistency in these systems to reduce that pressure on yourself. And so I would say that's one of the bigger challenges is literally just the amount of follow-up that's happening with the leads that they currently have.
Okay, and I love systems, so good match there. So I will turn it over to Anu.
So since you said systems, most of my businesses have QuickBooks in place or some kind of app, or controller would have set up a spreadsheet that only the controller and the current person working on it would understand it. But then this is a question I ask business owners to see that if they are facing the challenge, and most of the time they are you making any money? And it answers so many questions where they are tracking stuff on bookkeeping or the QuickBooks, but the revenue doesn't mean they are essentially profitable. So money comes in, but the bank account says negative balance. And I'm surprised to see that. I'm like, is there an error in QuickBooks that I need to refresh to see some money come up? And I wish it happens, but it doesn't. So it's all about, not just tracking it, also essentially learning from history where we need to change pricing, we need to change the structure. And again, I think sales and marketing helps in that. Like, I guess this is why we are doing this. Yeah. So I see that.
And I'll kind of follow up with that. So I'll say two, because my first one is cheating a little bit, but definitely to Shane's point, I feel like small businesses, specifically small businesses, don't put a lot of weight on sales, when sales is like the heartbeat of the business, right? If we don't have sales, we can't do anything because we don't have any money coming in. And if we have money coming in, but we're not pricing it correctly, we still have money coming in, but we don't have enough to actually cover salaries and then also make a profit. So I definitely think putting emphasis on sales is one thing that I see. It's interesting because a lot of the business owners I work with, they have just had a great network. Like they haven't had to sell because they've had a great network or they've done one or two things that really worked, which kind of takes me to my next piece, which is that there is no actual plan for marketing, right? So they've tried one thing and it worked really well, but they didn't really know what worked. They tried something else, it didn't work well, and so they never want to go back to it, but they're not actually tracking the data to say, oh, okay, we sent this email and maybe the open rate was good, so that means our subject line is good, but we didn't have any click-throughs, which means our body and our CTA is not that great. They're not taking the I don't want to say not taking the time, because as a small business owner, we all know like we're ripping and running like chickens with our head cut off. But really taking the space to understand, what does this data mean and how do I strategically grow, not happenstancely grow. So that's one of the things I kind of help with the 90-day marketing plan, which oftentimes when I come in, and a year is a lot for a business owner to think about, right? But 90 days is a good, like you can see a real change in 90 days and it gets them excited for the next 90 days. So that's what I would say.
Okay, and that kind of leads into one of the questions that was submitted for with registration. Someone asked, "What does the stage of your business? How does that impact how you think about your particular service that you provide or your particular topic? So, how does that affect it? So, like for instance, with Cece, we'll go right back to you since you're the one who just spoke first talking. How is the change between a company that's in the startup phase, they're just trying to get revenue and just trying to get started, versus someone who is more established but do need a little bit of structure there? How does that interact with the service that you provide?"
Yeah, so I think that as a business owner, some of the toughest decision you have to make is, what can I do with my budget and what can I do with my capacity? Right? You can only grow as your capacity grows. You can only do as your capacity grows. You can only do so much as your budget grows. So I always like to start back, right? What is the budget? How much money are we working with here? And what's the capacity? How many hours can you dedicate to marketing a week? If it's only 2 hours, well, then we can't do some huge, large campaign for FIFA because you don't have more than 2 hours to give to marketing. Now, once you're able to grow, and let's say you have an entire marketing person or you bring on a marketing agency like myself, okay, now we can do some big actual campaigns that elongate over a month or 2 months because you actually have the capacity to do that.
Sorry, I have kids over here. Give me a sec.
I can go in for a new.
No, we'll have an extra person on screen, like we'll have a guest star.
Hey, kiddos.
They're calling you guest stars. They want to say hi.
Hello.
So now he'll have
Yes, say
screen
hello
credit
first.
to his name, right?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
All
Fine.
right.
Sorry about that.
No,
I kept,
I mean,
I
just
kept
people.
waving at them to go away.
And they were like, "Come, you're saying come."
So yeah, it was something like a habit that I've created for them, where they come in and I'm like, okay, be part of this, be part of this. Come on in. I kind of have a futon here and then a table, paper, crayons, and everything. So they're used to it, but I didn't plan for this. The timing is so perfect. They know when things are like at its peak, and they'll just come in. So yeah. I want to say something as a follow-up to what Cece was mentioning earlier, where I was thinking where sales and marketing is the same thing, but bookkeeping plays a great role. Where like I kind of appreciate, and hats off to you all for bringing us together. Was, so you need the marketing for the visibility of what you're doing with your business, who you are, what you're doing, what are your services, and how people could gain from your services. But then sales is what kind of lands those, bringing in those people in, saying that, yeah, we are a good fit, we are a great fit, let's work together and find the right next step or the growth for your business, or like what kind of service that is depends on that. But then bookkeeping plays a vital role after the fact, where you did spend on marketing, you did spend on sales, did it all bring in the right revenue? This is where the pricing matters. You do all of that effort, and then the underpricing of what you did because you think that this is what it is, this is how much the service costs, that's where you're losing it, where the revenue, you are doing 10,000 sales of a product or maybe 100 sales of a service, but then where is the profit? Which is where, the measuring of what you're doing or the tracking of how much you spend and how much effort's been put in there kind of comes into play. This kind of leads into to the next question where you were asking like which stage does it impact. So early stage, it's very crucial where you need to know how much money is coming in and how much you're expensing for the next step of growth. In the established phase, you're kind of planning it better. Like that's where the 90-day comes into play, where you're planning it quarter by quarter, depending on the type of business. You need, some businesses are seasonal and some businesses are like happening throughout the year, but then they just need more visibility throughout. So sales cannot stop, marketing cannot stop, the cash flow needs to come in and out, but you need to plan it way better. So I think this is like a great panel you got. Oh,
Yeah, so I would say it's very kind of convoluted between the different stages of business when it comes to sales specifically. Like in the very beginning, sales are incredibly important because you need a way to make money to be able to afford things like marketing, and a lot of people will take out loans and spend money on both sales and marketing. And so what I think is really important is when someone is starting out is creating any like some type of sales process that you can stick to, and kind of like what CC was mentioning earlier, where just because you create the process, that does not mean that's like your permanent go forward way of doing things when it comes to sales, cold outreach, warm outreach, whatever it might be. So being able to pivot between those different strategies is incredibly important early on. And then like when it comes to being in a more established business, what I see a lot of times coming from corporate and doing so many years of door-to-door sales is there will be systems that are in place, and certain people will follow systems and certain people won't follow systems, and other people will follow them kind of, right? So you kind of got like your 10-80-10 rule. You got 10% of people that at the top that are doing everything by the book. You got 80% of people kind of in the middle. They're following some of the processes, updating notes in the CRM, but not really doing it correctly. Then you have your bottom 10% of people that have just kind of gone off on their own and doing their own thing, right? So the difference between like the startup and the more established business is how consistent can your processes be, and how as like a leader within those businesses can you get people to follow these different systems and processes. And the problem I see it with a lot of leaders trying to get people to follow systems and processes is they're telling you what to do, but they're not explaining the why behind it. And if you don't explain the why behind it, that makes it really difficult to motivate certain people as to why should I do it. Because they're sitting there at their desk in their cubicle. They're like, why am I doing this? Why am I following the stupid process? It's not working, blah, blah, blah. But again, if you're able to explain the whys behind what you're trying to implement, then it helps make that strategy more successful.
And I would love to hit on that point, Shane, because I think that's really important. As someone who has implemented so many CRMs, number one, like the CRM that you use matters, because if people can't get into the CRM in an easy, smooth way, especially when you have a large sales team, they're not going to put the information in, right? Like they're on the car, on the go, in the car, on the go. They're not necessarily going to use that information. But I also noticed that it's top down, right? So if the leaders are not using the tools that we have in place, then as they hire people, the people that they hire are like, oh, well, this is optional, right?
Yep.
So I do think that that's very, very important. And I would almost say, even as a marketer, in the beginning of your process, sales is your only thing that matters. Like even you can't send mass emails because you don't have email lists. You don't have budget for an ad. So you really have to get out there and do that contact sport sales. And I think that that's a big piece that small businesses try to skip over, especially owners and founders. They're like, yeah, I'm not the salesperson. Like, I'm not going to sell. And it's like, you are your best salesperson. You have got to learn how to sell in order to grow this business.
Yep.
So I totally agree with everything you're saying.
Yep.
So that I was going to show the comment. I'll go back to the comment first because we want to give our guest stars their due. They got a cute from the comments on YouTube. So now you can go back and tell them that, and you'll have
Okay.
evidence.
Okay.
But you all
Thank
probably
you.
covered the next question that we had on our list about how your different areas interact with one another. And so I'm familiar with the public affairs side of, because I come from public sector, so I'm familiar with that. And boy, am I familiar with budget and bookkeeping. But sales, I mean, I work for the government. You just do what like you come to. So that was something that was very new to me as a new business owner, because like you're like, I don't need a social security card. I'm just gonna go out and work. No one's going to say that, right? You can't
Mhm.
get a job. You even if you don't have a social security number, you have to get that other number from IRS. But we won't jump into that puddle right now. We're gonna go right to the next question, which is, if you had to recommend a steady process, which you already did kind of touch on, but if you had to recommend one tool or system or a process, what would it be, and what's the downside of using that? Because we all have our things that we love, right? I will go in and say Outlook is the best email tool ever because I work, with operations training and I really love Outlook. But what are the downsides to those particular tools that you do recommend, and what do people need to keep in mind? So this time I will start with a new. He
I
can
had
bring
a
on his
feeling.
guest stars if he wants.
I had a feeling it would be me. So I primarily work on QuickBooks. So it's not that I cannot work on another bookkeeping software or accounting platform. But the problem comes with how it's being sold, where any accounting app for a business owner would be, oh, it's easier. It's built around the businesses and business owners. But the problem lies within the software, where it's all generic and not all businesses are the same. And this is something I learned early on, where having conversation with 5 different businesses, they operate a different way. Some businesses have inventory, some businesses just have expenses and they are the service. Like, for example, I am the service. I would be providing the service. I'm not buying something or selling something. So depending on inventory and how that operates, you might have like 1,000 items to create an inventory asset out of, and then you might have loans. Some businesses don't have loans. Then there are businesses that have a car, a building, rent, lease. Like the structure changes depending on what kind of business it is. So it's not essentially that you're not good with your finances. It's just that you need to understand the tool you're using. Say it's QuickBooks, Wave, FreshBooks. There's a bunch of tools that you could use, and there are tools that integrates all of this, sales, marketing, and accounting together into an app. You could use that too, and this is all when you're doing a DIY. But then there will be a point where you want to use those numbers to grow or plan better, to see what your numbers are doing. If your CRM is working fine, that's when you start to outsource and find someone who could tell you what those numbers really mean, tell what the analytics really mean, tell them what those opportunities mean. Like there are numbers that's specific to sales, marketing, and accounting that you could see and understand, but then what do you do with that? Like that would be the next step. So I would recommend having QuickBooks initially, but then it is up to you. You could still work off of a spreadsheet that your accountant, CFO, or a controller gave you, which works easy. It's easy numbers. You don't have to understand the tool, but be tracking everything you're doing. Primarily your expenses, your revenue. Make sure you're profitable. And then when you're growing and you're ready to, you don't have time to look at the numbers. You don't have time to do sales and marketing. Make sure you get a professional. Don't worry about the cost. Make sure they are trustworthy and tell you that stand by your business for your growth. That's all you need to worry about. It's going to be beneficial. So that's my thought on it. QuickBooks,
Okay.
any financial tool.
All right. So I flip a coin, a virtual coin, and I will go with Shane.
Lovely. Yeah, I mean, similar to Anu, there's a lot of different tools that you can use in order to track leads and follow up and create cadences, which is basically a way of, when you get a lead in, to automatically send an email and then schedule a task within that CRM to call them the next day or send an email again 3 days later. And all of these things are like automated, right? They're different emails, they're different touch points. in order to continue following up with these people. I always try to recommend, if you're just starting out, try to find like a free tool that is going to that you can learn, that seems simple. Do your research. It's going to be different for everybody. Personally, I use HubSpot. There are some downsides to HubSpot because it's a very enterprise system. So in order to do things like cadences, they want you to go up to certain packages. But a lot of the stuff you can learn and just do manually, and it takes 5 to 10 seconds, right? You're not sending out thousands of emails, or maybe you are, but um, that would be the recommendation. The other thing that I see a lot of too is utilizing AI, and AI is interesting because, like especially with ChatGPT, I was having this conversation with someone the other day. It can be very, and I hope I'm saying this right, sycophonic, where it's like agrees with you way too much. And so the problem when you're like trying to start a business with not a lot of experience in sales, bookkeeping, or marketing, if you try to correct it or start leading it down a path of ideas, it sometimes not give you the best recommendations unless you kind of come at it with like a different lens or a different prompt, which would just simply be your experience. But yeah, you can use AI to import leads. You can use it for ideas. I would just be really careful when you're using it. If it's creating certain things for you, then you're not quite sure. That's why people hire professionals like CC and New and O in order to do certain things, because it can just lead you down a path that might not be entirely correct. And I would say those are some of the bigger downsides. But on the other hand, it does give you really great information, really great ideas. The biggest thing is just execution and making sure you're executing correctly.
Am I next?
I think so.
You wouldn't surprise. I still had my mute on, but I was pointing, but you can't tell because
Okay.
of the fake background.
So I am definitely going to second that. A CRM is so important. It is the foundation. That is like the first thing I do when I come into a business. If they don't want to use a CRM, you can't work with me, because that's just how foundational it is. You want to see mass emails, you need a CRM. You want to keep up with the customer data, you need a CRM. You want to know their email, their phone number, their birthday. You want to know how many contacts you have, how many emails are bad. You want to know where your deals fall off within your sales process. All of that comes from a CRM. So it really is the foundation of your business. I love HubSpot as well. We actually just released our own tool called the Hub, and it's really for business owners, I would say, that have less than 10 team members. It's a super powerhouse tool. So you're able to send mass emails, text messages, schedule your social media on multiple platforms at one time. You're able to have your website, your landing page, your funnels. There's so much that you can do on that platform. So of course that's our favorite, but I'm a little biased. You mentioned to say a downside. I would say the downside of a CRM is the same thing with AI. You really have to know how to leverage a CRM and how to use a CRM. And if you have a sales team, they need to go through training. Oftentimes when I come into businesses, they have a CRM and they're like, oh yeah, our sales team doesn't use it. Well, did you train them on it? Whereas I have some businesses, and we did a complete rollout. I mean, like a party roll. Like we really got people excited to use the platform, because it's almost like giving kids something. Like if you just give them vegetables and it's like they don't have no salt, no pepper, it's not like, real sauce stuff. They're like, I don't want these green beans. They're nasty. You sauce them up a little bit, maybe put them in a nice heart. They're like, oh yes, I want these green beans. So I think that that's really important when you talk about rolling out a CRM. I also want to talk about AI as well. Stop using ChatGPT. Like, let's just stop. Let's stop using that for business purposes. I would definitely suggest more of a Gemini or a Claude. I feel like the information that it gives you, the outputs that it gives you is much better. And as we are evolving in the world, it is imperative that you know how to use AI. I think sometimes people are like, oh yeah, like I don't need to know how to use that. Oh, I'm a plumber, I don't need to know how to use that. Or, oh, I'm a writer, I don't need to know how to use that. Everyone needs to know how to use AI, because it's going to become a thing of like, if you don't know how to use it, someone is going to replace you that does. So take AI courses, go to AI conference, really dive into that sector, because it's going to be important for everybody. And then the third thing that I would say is a project management tool. And this is really on like the operational side and just like leadership side. Having one place where you can go and see all of the projects that you're working on, see who they're assigned to, see when they're due. That's really important so that you make sure that everything is kind of seamlessly coming together. You know, you got the finance side of business, you got the marketing side, you got the sales side, you got the operations side. There's so many different pieces of the business, and the more people you bring on, the harder it's going to be for you to manage them if you don't have one easy way to say, okay, these are all of the projects that we're working on and here's where we are. I would maybe use a tool somewhat like Notion or Trello. Trello is also an Atlassian tool. So if you're more in like the tech world, they have a tool called Jira, and that works really, really well in the tech world.
Yeah, and I'm gonna put like because I just gave a presentation on it. If you're already using M365, Planner is there, and so don't go out and get a. I mean, like I do. I'm a Asana ambassador, so yeah, go get Asana. But also, you have Planner. You know, you actually have Planner out there. Um, we did have one more question in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and put it on the screen so that everyone can see it. As a solopreneur, it's hard to know what is the best use of your time. There are so many things that you can do. So, for each person on our panel, how do you determine what to prioritize in each quarter of your business?
Um, I want to go with, since it was solopreneur, I, I wanted to touch points with Shane and CC. Like, thanks for bringing up the CRM tools. Like, as a solopreneur who tries to, do everything yourself, save some, money on not hiring people because their revenue is not coming in, and I didn't get my first client until the end of my second year. So it was all expenses towards getting all the tools. So I was cautious on not get spending money on tools because everything looks shiny and nice and could do a lot of things. And like how O mentioned that M365 has something, this is something when you're like fast paced and you have people to mouths to feed, you got to get the sale done, you got to do marketing done. You're not going to think about, exploring what other options a certain tool you already have has. So you're just going to buy another one to, answer that question. So work with simple tools that you have, get those free subscriptions, see if you're going to use it more than 30 days. If you're not, it's not worth paying for. Like, if you can't figure it out, you're never going to use it. So yeah, the 30 days free trial is more beneficial for solopreneurs where you could explore it. And then if you can't figure it out, don't use it. And another thing with Claude and ChatGPT, I totally agree with CC. 2026 ChatGPT has gone wonky. Like, I have to double check with Claude like 200 times because ChatGPT agrees with everything. He's my yes man. Like, I call it Ace, but it's not Ace anymore. So I gotta go with Claude. It's like, make sure that's right. And then it's like, yeah, it's just wonky in that sense. So with the 90-day plan for businesses, I think as a new business owner, you gotta create goals, create measurable goals which are specific. You don't need to create 10 goals. Go with one or two or like top five, and try getting to one or two or three in that month. And if it's not possible, again, create another deadline. So it's not that you're creating unrealistic goals, it's just that the deadlines are unrealistic. You could say that I want to get these three things done in 30 days, but maybe that's 90 days. And maybe you don't have time for it, or maybe you don't have the expertise or the team member for it. So you could still work on it. Like, I don't know if it's CC or Shane saying it, where someone tried something, it was CC, someone tried something, it didn't work out, they stopped doing it. But it was just the timeline. You got to extend the timeline, work at it again, try it again. Doesn't work, try it again. But it's all going to be parallels to each other. Things need to happen. Sales needs to happen. Marketing needs to happen. The work needs to happen. And then you got to track how things are going with the bookkeeping part of it. So I think it is doable. It just, you need to figure out the realistic timeline for it. So that's my advice.
Yeah, I can go. I would say, especially starting out, 90-day goals are incredibly important. I think what, Anu touched on is also incredibly important about setting up particular types of goals, SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. And by setting up these goals, it gives you something to track on, but it also gives you purpose every day, right? A lot of people who are in sales or marketing or bookkeeping or running their own business, They can come into something with an idea of a goal, but they don't write it down. They don't put it anywhere. They're not tracking it. They're not measuring it. Same problems we see in sales and marketing, right? And even bookkeeping. They have the idea of the thing, but it's never tracked. So it's like, where really am I? And so when you really just kind of sit down and like think about what is it that I want to accomplish in these next 90 days, and then work backwards from that goal, then you set a goal. Say you want to get your next 3 clients in 90 days. Okay, so what are the steps that we need to take in order to get these clients, and really just work backwards from those goals and set up tasks that are going to get you to that goal. Now, similarly, you might do this and you might not achieve your goal, and that's totally okay. You know, you shoot for the moon, you might land amongst the stars, and that's totally fine. It's about trying to pivot and stay consistent with that goal setting, and realizing the progress that you've made instead of the perfection that you're trying to obtain, right? And so I would say that's the biggest thing, is set a 90-day goal and then work backwards from that goal, creating tasks on how you can actually get there, whether that's networking events, attending classes like this, reaching out to a past colleague to learn more about the industry you're either breaking into or trying to expand into, and start from there.
I'm going to jump in there and say shout out to all the PMs who ever watched this for work breakdown structure. Okay. And so then I'll pass it over to Cece.
So the first 2 things I have are not marketing related at all. So the first one is definitely time blocking. Time blocking literally saved my brain as an entrepreneur, and I do it every Sunday. So I time block my entire week. Like, when am I going to events? When am I going to eat lunch? When am I going to make dinner? Because when you're an employee, you go to work, you come home, and you have your personal life, and your personal life is all yours, right? When you're an entrepreneur, your business life is embedded and interwoven into your personal life. So it's very important to time block so that you know exactly what you're doing. I also found it helpful because sometimes we sit down and we're like, I'm ready to work. On what? You don't know. When you give yourself the task, you have time to creatively think, okay, these are the things I want to work on. These are some of the tasks I want to do. So when you actually sit down to do it, it's like, okay, I'm doing this, this, and this, and this, right? Not like, okay, what am I going to do again? What do I want to do? What do I want to focus on today? You should not be thinking about what you're doing that day on the day. I think another piece that I would mention, I can't remember my second one, so I'll go on to my marketing one. Events was really, really good for me in the beginning. And I think it's because it's a mix of marketing and sales. When you're in marketing, and in order for people to buy for you, they have to like, know, and trust you. It's a lot easier to do that in person than it is virtually. It's a lot easier to do that in person than it is sliding in someone's LinkedIn DM. So going to events, and they don't always have to be networking events. I personally love networking events. I go to at least 1 or 2 a week. It works for me. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. But conferences, expos, trade shows where you're like thousands and thousands of people, and give yourself Anu was saying, give yourself a goal. If you're going to an expo, you want to have 15 cards from that expo, right? And then you want to get in contact with those 15 people. You need to be picking up the phone. Hey, Troy, it was so nice to meet you. This is my name. This is what I do. Let's set up a call, right? If you're a service-based business, because that's typically what I work with, your money is going to come from the amount of sales calls that you have, right? The amount of, not onboarding calls, but interest calls, so have you, right? So you want to make sure you're getting as many of those on your calendar as possible. How many do you want to get? Maybe 5, maybe 10 a week. And then that's going to determine how many events you want to go to, right? If you go to one event on Tuesday and you do great, maybe you don't have to go to another event that week. But if you go to one event on Tuesday and it wasn't that great, we're an entrepreneur. We're not an employee. We don't get paid for just going to work. So that means you may want to find another event to go to towards the end of the week, right? That's my 2 things that I think are really important.
I want to follow up on what CC said. Like earlier in the business, like whenever you go to a networking event, they always ask you for a business card. Like, oh, how can you show up to a event without a business card? And then recently I realized that I know for a fact that that business card is not going on your phone. It's just going to go to trash, or you're going to lose it. So if you really want business, I would just walk into a meeting without a business card. I would be like, I'll take yours. I don't have mine. I'll reach out to you by the end of the day or the end of the week, and let's set up a time to meet and talk. And that was not intentional. I did it because I forgot my cards multiple times. I would have it in my car. I'm like, I'm not running back while I could talk to people. Like you're having a good conversation. So from being wanting to be visible by just handing a card, I'm like, I would just talk to people. I want to know more about what you do and why you're here. That kind of answers a lot of questions for you as a solopreneur. Learn more about how you could make your business better. So that's been working good for me. So that's it.
I agree with that. And Shane, I know you're over there shaking your head because as the sales, like you got to be contact sport. You got to call them. You got to email them. How you going to
Right.
email them if you don't have
Right.
any
Follow ups.
Yeah,
Follow
100%.
ups.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got one of those link cards. There's a bunch of different ones, but it just has like a QR code on it. And I found
Yeah.
that it's kind of an inconvenience because people have to pull out their phone, unlock it,
Yeah.
turn on the camera, scan the code. And if
Right.
they're in a bad service area, it takes forever to load, and then I'm sitting there embarrassed. And but I mean, it is similar. Like I collect cards, and then my goal is to send them an email. Hey, it was great. Hey, John, great to connect with you. I would love to learn a little bit more about you. Here's a calendar link. Let's schedule some time for next week for 30 minutes to learn more about each other and your business and stuff like that. So yeah, that's absolutely huge.
So I'm going to jump in here, even though it's totally, training is where I am. So someone did mention training earlier and I was very happy, but that goes to knowing your tools. Because if you have HubSpot, even in the free edition, there is a feature where you just scan the business card and it automatically drags that contact into your CRM. And so it's there and you can set up, even if it's not directly in HubSpot, but you can set up automation on the back end that says, if a card is added this way, a contact is added this way, add a task to make sure I follow up on that person, right?
Yeah.
That feature is there and it doesn't cost you anything. It may cost you a little bit to set, time to set that up.
Right.
But once you set it up, it's there. And so that's that reminder for you to go and do it. And different things work for different people, right? So
Right.
some people, they're like, before we leave, we're going to set up a call. I don't necessarily do that, but I
Oh
know
my
that
gosh.
works. Yeah, some that works for other people. And so people have to adjust and they have to find what's going to work for them and what's going to be
Right.
on their comfort level. Because like when working with time management, something that works for me, like again, I love Outlook works perfect for me, but someone else that may not work for them. And so them finding whatever is the best thing for them and building a system around what works for them and what's going to, because I have a friend, like I'm like, just make a task list because I love task lists, and flowcharts. Shane and I talked about flowcharts. I love those things, but for that particular person who is successful, they have to write things, they do work by the day, but they do have a system in place that each day this is what they do to make sure that they get things on that task and they have the work breakdown structure,
Right.
in there so that they are making progress over time. So let's see, what do we have left? See, I told you guys we were not going to touch our 15 questions. But I'm going to go ahead and give the comments that we have, give everybody their flowers. We have a thank you for a new about giving your story. We have for Shane, good to focus on progress and not always on achievement. And the hint from CC about time blocking. So I want, you give people their flowers while they're there and not when they're gone. Because you'll see them later when you go to the YouTube page, but I want you to see them now. So I think you also, Shane, I was going to jump down to your question about business owners generate a lot of leads, but they struggle with closing the sales, and for you to kind of go into why you think that is, because a lot of times we have people, like even though only, we have a limited number of people, namely one, who is watching the event now, several people showed up. So those people, for me as a company, and also for you guys, because you're going to get the list, these are leads for us. So what, we have, just for this one pop-up event, we all have leads. So what we need to do to make that convert or to build on conversations with the people that we just met, we're going to meet as a result of this event.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the kind of touched on it earlier, but the biggest thing is just creating a system that you can stick to in order to follow up with those leads. And so, I mean, CC knows this. It's like creating a cadence within your CRM where you send the follow-up email, right? And it doesn't have to be like super salesy or anything like that. It has to be a way for you to try to connect with the person, to learn more about them and ultimately what their goals are if you guys are going to work together. I think that's really important because there may be somebody that I connect with who's more looking for bookkeeping or marketing advice, and I'm not necessarily in that realm, and so that's when I would turn up a referral. And similarly for CC and the new, if it's not something in that realm that they're looking to help someone with, they can refer it to somebody else. But the biggest thing is creating a system, right? And so typically what I found was after that initial email, creating a cadence where you send the initial follow-up email, and then on day 3, 5, and 7, you send more like additional emails. And on day 4 and 6, you just pick up the phone and give them a call if you have their phone number and just say, hey, I sent you over some emails. I was wondering if you'd be interested to connect, learn more about your goals, etc. And then the important part here too is we don't want to spam our potential customers, right? We don't want to be annoying. And so at a certain point in that process, it's also important to send what I like to call the breakup email. And that's basically like if they're not responding, if you're kind of getting in a stage where you're ghosted or you're not really feeling super confident that this person is going to respond to you, it's just a simple breakup email. And typically what that sounds like is, hey, I haven't heard back from you. If I really appreciate you attending the event. If in the future you decide you want to talk more about X, Y, and Z topic, feel free to reach out. And then you don't have to contact them ever again, or you can put them into a new cadence where you follow up once a quarter. And this cadence, I think, is a little bit different because this isn't a way to sell services again, but it's more informational. And so it's like different tidbits that you're finding online about how to do well in sales or marketing or bookkeeping, different tools that are releasing features that this person might find valuable. And what you're doing here and the strategy behind this really is you're staying top of mind and you're showing up in their inbox, right? And I think that, especially from like a marketing perspective, is incredibly huge, because if you're not staying top of mind, then someone else that reaches out to that person or that they meet at a networking event is now the new top of mind person, right? Their emails are still sitting in the box, but now they have someone else that they just recently met that is more fresh in their mind that they might likely go with if we're not continuously trying to stay on top of this. But beside that, I am doing a class next Tuesday on Eventbrite, and I think the link should go out, but talking about the different strategies in the follow-up process if anyone's interested in joining that. So that would be next Tuesday. I think I changed the time to 2:30 because I have a networking event that afternoon, but yeah, that should be going out.
Okay. So a question, did anyone else want to jump in before I go to the next question?
No, what Shane says is like really good, because like I've been in all three instances that he mentioned where I was constantly following up with someone, but then there was a time where I couldn't follow up. They met someone at an event, and this was the same time that they had a problem with their previous CPA, and they went with another bookkeeper. And I'm like, well, hey, I'm, she felt so bad that she called me for a seminar. She made me be in multiple places, introduced to me a lot of people, but still, you didn't work with me, and you didn't even bother to talk to me after that. And but that was also, and I had built a good relationship with that person. And then she was like, "Oh, I apologize. You didn't. I couldn't think of you because I was not there at the same networking event she was." Soon after that event happened in her business. So it's not my fault. It's not her fault. It's just the timing worked out better. And the breakup email is also a good one because, again, like recently I've been sending out proposals. Like this is the time clients want bookkeeping because they post tax season. They're realizing that, oh, having a bookkeeper, the cost doesn't matter. We could do better with business and also, pay less in taxes or like track better so we don't get penalized. And working with them, sending out proposal, like you realize that they have a different timeline. Summer gets busy, they have kids, business gets busy depending on what business they are in. So the breakup email kind of gives them the space to realize, oh, Anu, Shane, and Cece are like following up, like they feel bad that I didn't follow up with them. They're gonna follow up with you. So all of the things Shane said, it works out. People are just thinking that, oh, they are good at sales, they're gonna follow up. They don't know that I'm not good at sales. So,
I want to point out something that you said, Anu. This is something that's important to me, which I don't know if that's on here or something else I'm working on because I'm working on too many things at one time right now. But you brought up the relationships. And so relationships, that's
Right.
something I really feel extremely strong about, right? If
Hmm.
anyone who's known me, who's worked with me a while, I,
Right.
that's the highest thing. And so even though she wasn't your customer, she still said, Anu, I like you, here, get in front of all these people, like, and so it
Right.
matters how you treat your customers, even if you're not actively doing business with them at a particular time, because people are going to remember. Like for instance, there was someone I was partnering with, and I believe in unsubscribing to emails. I'm like, I don't need ChatGPT to see what, I'm just going to unsubscribe if it's too many emails in my inbox. And, that's part of the email training. So how you treat people is important.
Right. Yeah, I got 4 people on my pipeline through her, through that seminar that she invited me to. So I don't mind. I just could be the second set of eyes to tell you what's going on. And the relationship still is there. And she always reaches out when something comes up. So we're friends.
Yeah, and that matters.
Yeah.
Would actually like to just add to that, especially on the email side. Sending value impact emails are so important. Like, I have a client that I work with. We've worked with on 2 projects right now. So we met at a not an expo. It was like it was something. It was some networking event, and she got on my list, and I reached out to her. She said, "Oh, I'll schedule a call with you." She scheduled a call with me. We did a consultation. She didn't follow up. She was on my email list for a year. A year. And I sent an email, and she was like, "I've literally just been waiting for the right time." And she booked a consultation, and she booked a service, and we moved forward that way. And I have another example. So I'm in Fort Lauderdale right now because sometimes I come here about once a quarter, and I meet people here when I'm here. But then I go back to Atlanta, and in my email list, I send my email list, "Hey, I'm doing this workshop." Someone that I met over 2 years ago was like, "We should totally meet up. I'm so interested in your CRM. Like, let's connect." And so relationships really do matter, but you can't build relationships with 1,000 people with just yourself. So that's where sending out emails that are really value packed. Like, I give game in my emails. I literally just had someone tell me today, like, "You give so much free advice, it's crazy." I'm like, yeah, take it. Because when you give that advice, and when people open your emails and they're like, "This was a good read. Like, I feel like I can take this and I can actually apply this to my business." You're now building trust, and you're now building not just trust as a person, but trust as a thought leader and an expert in your space.
So I'm going to go back to Anu for our next question, and then we'll probably wrap up because we only have 10 minutes, and I have to still talk about the next panel that's going to be in 3 weeks. So, when does a business know, this question is for Anu, when does a business know that they've outgrown do it yourself bookkeeping? So when would they know that maybe I need to not use my Google Sheet and maybe move to something more advanced?
I would say they could be blind to it. Like it's not a mistake, it's not a fault in the system. It's just that you need to know when you have outgrown yourself. Like it could be a tax accountant that you're working with, but they're not giving you strategy. You would be fine with the way you're getting revenues and profits. But one specific detail would be I've been doing bookkeeping, it's been good. I've been doing my taxes. But then this year, my business grew where I hired few more, I made more revenue, I have more expenses. Now none of this makes sense. Like, why am I doing more but making less money? Why am I paying so much more in taxes when I did less in revenue? So none of the bookkeeping that I do makes sense to me. Would be a good time that they've outgrown DIY bookkeeping, or when like it's not the same person doing it. One of the family members doing it, bookkeeping is done. The business owner is like, I don't know what that other person is doing. It could be an aunt, it could be a husband or brother doing it. I don't know what the heck they are doing. Like they say it's all good, but I don't see any information that I could use to grow my business. Or every time I do my taxes, uh, they need statements. They need more information. Just the bookkeeping that you have should be able to answer all the questions that an accountant has. You don't need bank statements. You don't need receipts or other stuff that needs to go with bookkeeping. Is just historical record keeping of whatever happened in your business. If that's not happening, it's not. If it's not simplifying or streamlining your business processes, that's the time you know that you need to get a professional in house or outsourced bookkeeping to take care of stuff.
So I'm going to ask you a follow-up question on that. So how often should a small business owner be looking at their financials? Like so that they see that this is happening, that they need to transition and they need to do something else.
So QuickBooks and most of the accounting software kind of pulls in all the data on a regular basis. All you need to do is categorize it in the right buckets. Otherwise, the reports are not going to make sense. And when you look at reports, you could pull reports by yourself on the settings. There should be a reports icon on the dashboard. You could see that monthly or quarterly, depending on how much transaction your business does. But I would recommend a business owner, not the bookkeeper, not the accountant, the business owner to go in and look at all the transactions at least weekly to get a hang of what's really going on a weekly basis. Now, them doing that weekly in the initial stages helps them understand what to look for on a monthly or quarterly basis. Uh, it includes everything. How is the asset doing? How is your income coming in, or how is the cash coming in and going out? Are we really profiting? What's happening with the inventory? Are we paying sales tax on time? Did we pay our taxes, like our regular monthly or quarterly estimated taxes are being paid? So you're tracking everything within bookkeeping. So the business owner really needs to be on top of this. Even if he doesn't understand the numbers, ask the right questions to whoever is taking care of your accounting.
Okay, so like based on what Anu just said, does anyone else have anything like Shane? Is there anything in sales that people should be looking at on a regular basis? And you probably already mentioned it, and I just don't remember it right at this very second. But is there anything else that people need to be tracking in sales on a regular basis?
Yeah, I would say things that should be tracked in sales on a regular basis. It just really depends where you're at. If you're like a solopreneur, just track your own personal activity. What have you done during a certain week? What have you done during a certain month or quarter? Because at the end of the day, your activity is what's going to deliver results. Like when I was working in corporate, we were required to make 50 to 75 cold calls per day, and it was very interesting, almost like a glitch in the matrix, but it was very evident that the people who were making 50 to 75, 100 cold calls, they were always at the top of the leaderboards. Whereas the people who were just kind of skating by and doing like 50, 45, they were typically in the middle or the bottom of the pack. And a lot of things really do just come down to activity. So really focus on like the activity you're doing, how many networking events you went to, what the results were from that, how many contacts you were able to generate. And then from there, just your standard like pipeline type of tracking. Where is this person in your pipeline? How many conversations have you had with them? What were the notes from the previous conversation? What are the next steps? I would say those are some of the big things to track within sales.
Do we have more guest stars? Are we going to get more guest stars in this? It looks like we're about to get more guest stars over there.
What's up, baby? Yeah, I'll be done in 2 minutes. Oh, come on. Thank you.
They didn't
They
mention
need
guest.
help with playing.
Oh, need help with playing.
Help with playing.
Yeah.
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 So I will let Cece, if you have one quick thing that you can say in 30 seconds before I put up the information about the next panel.
Quick thing, get a CRM. It'll help you track things.
Yeah.
It will automatically start helping you track things. So that's gonna be my one thing.
Can I add something to what Cece mentioned earlier? Like in the early stages, like this is answer to the person who's our only person audience. So she's talking about in-person events. Like that is very crucial when you don't have clients or when you're not making money. Be there, connect with those people, and then if nothing makes sense, hire a coach. Don't even think about it. It's worth it. Find out who's the best coach in your field or someone who you really trust help you. And there are mentors who do it for free too. If you're not making income, they would support you just with guidance and telling you what's really happening. Work with somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. Look into like your local chamber of commerce.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I'll mention, even though I actually have a panel on this, that's my third panel in August. But there
Excuse
are
me.
different organizations like for women. There almost every state or every has a women's business development center. There are small business development centers. There are SCORE. That like there are all these different organizations that are out there, and their whole aim, even IFL, right? That's an organization I volunteer with. They are it's free to you. and it is they're out there and they're there to help. They will give you free counseling. They will give you things that's tailored to your particular business and not just a cookie cutter approach. So take advantage of those particular resources. But to plug my own event that's going to be in about 3 weeks, we have Jill Redmond, Michael Hales, who is SSA fellow SSA alum. So yay, Michael. And then also Leslie Ann Mitchell, who will be joining to talk about different ways to look at leadership. Because a lot of times when people have small businesses, they may not have that leadership experience. And so when they bring on new people, they have to learn how to adjust and to look at it. So they're going to look at, just even if you're promoting a supervisor because you've gotten that big. So that's Michael. He's talking about new supervisors. Leslie is going to talk about dealing with stress and resilience, because you already have enough stress as a business owner, and then you add other people, and it's different. And then finally, Jill talks about mindset. And so mindset can help us even when we're solopreneurs. So of course, I'm looking forward, because I like talking to people, not on camera though, but I'm looking forward to talking to each of them next week. So hopefully some other people can join. So then we'll wrap up with our final question, which I have to bring it back up because I'm not going to try to remember it. Is, if people could remember only one thing about your area of expertise, so about marketing, about sales, about bookkeeping and finance, what would you recommend? Like if people had one takeaway, because like for instance, the people watching this on YouTube don't have everyone's going to get your free items and your freebies in the email who registered. But what if they are watching this later? What would be the one takeaway for those people?
I'll go. What I do is kind of typically simple, organizing things in the right bucket. How this would help you is know where to look for the information when you need it. And right now, most of my clients would be like, let's call Anu. Like if I have a question, let's just call him. He'll know it. And it could be reports, it could be cash flow visibility, it could be just seeing if they're making revenue, if the pricing is right. So right now, one takeaway for the members watching it or who's going to watch later would be you could do that yourself. Like my tool that I've shared is very simple, where you're just going to track your expenses, track your revenue, make sure you're profitable, and also track your margins, because the margin percentage really matters. Because depending on, like, and this is simple, you could go on AI and find out what is the good margin that I should be making for my business, and make sure you're there. And then once you're there, like you've made 35% of margin, then you'd start hiring people because you're making money. You buy equipments because you're making money. But then you also need to make sure those hiring and that expansion or purchases don't eat up your margins. That's where again, like you got to be more proactive at tracking your results. So yeah, that's me.
CC, do you want to go?
I'll keep it simple. I help people. I'm passionate about helping small businesses create and execute their marketing strategy. I don't just give you a bunch of lists to do. I actually help you, walk you along the way and tell you what we should do. And I also do it as well. So you don't have to have any extra tasks on your list. So yeah, that's a little bit about what I do.
Awesome.
That's longer than one line.
Yeah, I would say, creating a system within your business is going to be incredibly important. And that's where I do my best to help people and kind of hold their hand through the process. And it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? There's certain things that are going to be uncomfortable learning different aspects of sales. There's going to be moments that come up where you feel like a failure, but when you keep the goal in mind, again, working back from the 90 days of what you want to accomplish and creating small tasks and small developmental habits, I think that over time, as you're looking back at your life and your progress, you can be incredibly proud by those different things that you are accomplishing. And one thing that I'm just incredibly passionate about is making impact in people's lives. If I'm able to help teach a new skill or a new way of doing things, and you take that and end up being successful with it, I think that's a win in my book.
All right, so that's
That is
it.
nice.
We're right at 4 o'clock. So thank you everyone for joining, and I will end the session. We'll still be able to talk to each other after if we want to.
We could.